Thank you, Stalker. We have a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to get started. Remember to use a Slido, S-L-I-D-O app to submit questions or raise your hand. Dan Haney will come around and give you your microphone. Now remember, these are architects, so let's make things, you got to make things a little easier for them. You love me.
Who likes architects in this room? Raise your hand. All right.
Who really likes architects in this room? Raise your hand. Yeah.
But you know to speak real slow.
So first we have Carrie with Carrie Matlock, the president of DLA Architects, 46-person architectural firm located in Ithaca, Illinois. She's been practicing educational architecture. Itasca. It's Illinois.
It's a tongue twister, I know.
For 25 years, me and Carrie have done work together. And then we have Craig Boone. Craig is principal / president of Architectural Plus, Inc. in Fort Smith, easy name, Arkansas. Architectural Plus is a 13-person firm that specializes in education. Clients ranging from higher education clients to rural schools, districts, and projects ranging from simple classroom additions to complete school, campus, and sports arenas. Craig has been in the project architect for more than 25 venues utilizing MFMA maple flooring. So, no, I do not do PowerPoint, in case you guys were wondering. I'm sorry, it's just not my thing. So, we're going to pull up some predetermined questions here. So first off, the question would be from you is, what do you two know about the MFMA?
It's a great organization. They have excellent conferences.
Right?
Excellent.
She put that real well. As far as MFMA, I don't have a lot of knowledge. I just know the floor system when we come in, and that's where the maple is certified through.
Well, in all seriousness, I mean, it is something we look for. We include in our specifications, and it's important to us. It's local. It's local for us. We're outside of Chicago, so it's pretty much in the area, and that's important for sustainability in our respect.
So is specifying MFMA important to you compared to non-MFMA products?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Why?
Is there any questions out there?
Why do you say that?
Well, yeah, I already said it, but because it's local and the tightness of the wood that is, with the forest that's in the area, and then we have a very long winter, as we all know, which is why we're enjoying being here today. So the quality's there. The grading that's set, it's important for us aesthetically. Why? Because when our owners look at it, they want to know what they're going to see, and that's consistency. So really, when we specify anything, any kind of guarantee that we can get to make it the way that we think it's going to be is really important for us. I know, all kidding aside, architects, you might have met some of us that are a little bit full of our egos. No, we're not all that way. But what we do like is we want quality, and that's really important to us. So anything we can do with help with that, and I think that this organization definitely does.
Yeah, the quality creates the consistency that I need, so that I can sit there and go back in, okay, talking to a client, I know what the floor was previous to the last project that I did, so I have a real good basis of what I can tell the expectations of the client will be.
In a situation where you're hired by an owner on a ground-up high school complex, you're the architect's office, how much time do you spend drawing up those plans for the ground-up architecture, the plan specification, and how much of that time is dedicated to the standalone gymnasium floor? Like the gymnasium itself?
In a ground-up school, in an entire building? I guess that would depend on how big, how large.
A couple 100,000 square feet, 300,000 square feet.
Yeah, so I mean, better part of a year, we would spend design through technical drawings.
One architect, or two architects?
Well, no, there's usually a team.
Right.
There'd be several people on that. We team of 10 people on that size project. And who would specify it? So actually, good point. You know, the detail that's left to those individuals, because there's all different team members that are part of this, and they all different, they range in educational levels. Craig and I are older in this industry, so we both, well, Craig looks older because he's got some gray hair, but we know a little bit about this. We've been doing it for years. The fact of the matter is that in most of those cases, the person who might be specifying that gym floor might be a little bit younger than us.
Very young.
But they all are supposed to be working under a licensed architect, and someone's supposed to be checking that. So that is important. We have quality control in our office as well. I do think that is a detail, right? That's probably one of the last things. It's a finish in comparison to the rest of the building, which means it's one of the final things that you're going to do. So not a lot of time is going to be spent on that comparison to the rest of the building, but I do think a lot of thought is given to what is specified. And we work with our clients specifically to figure out what they want firsthand. We leave a lot of that up to them. It's not always us. We bring ideas to the table and options to the table for them, but a lot of times we work out presentations that they do, the sales reps from different types of flooring and different types of manufacturers. We will have them in and give presentations to the owner, and the owner will decide the ultimate end product for that.
Our firm, one more creatures of habit. The floor comes to us in usually one of two ways. The school athletic director comes and says, this is the floor we want, or they come back in and ask us to recommend. We're not opposed to packing them up, taking them to one of the design centers to show them multiple floors. It's quite common that we'll go to a design center thinking that we're wanting a specific product. You know, obviously I'm 5'6". I didn't play basketball growing up, so I can't bounce a ball on a floor and tell the difference. Take an athletic director or the basketball coach, they can. So let them take and touch the product and dribble around on it and play on it so they can sit there and come back in and we can make decisions. But then, you know, cost always comes in to play.
Questions from Slido. First, I'll answer the first one. If you see a 2 3/8 maple floor, what does that mean? It's called power lock floor system. If you want to know about it, I'll let you know. Next, what are you looking for when it comes to AIA courses?
We're in mid-2000, you know, we were required to get continuing education classes. So for you to come into either a lunch and learn in my office, a section meeting with our local AIA chapter or a national or a state or a national meeting, one, I mean, we've got to say, we're looking for that credit. We got to get X number done by the end of the year. But we want to be educated. We want to see what the new products are. We also want to understand that are we writing our specifications? Are we following the installation correctly?
I want to hear about case studies. I want to hear about the bad things that have happened and how we can avoid them by changing our specification, or this product is going to alleviate that. Because honestly, how we learn throughout our careers are by making errors and having situations that are out there that have impacted us in some way. And that's something that we need to learn about, that of the mistakes that other people have made, or the problems with products that are out there, or to alleviate something that's a belt and suspenders approach to moisture, you know, and keeping that away from the wood floor. So those are the types of things that we want to hear about. But I would echo what Craig said. It's all about education at the end of the day.
Because the gym floors are finished, and it's one of the last items installed in a school project. It seems like the gym floor contractor bears a lot of the brunt of expediting the completion of the school project. That pressure being placed on the gym floor contractor may not be in the best interest of your client in the long term to have a quality product in their facility. How do you recommend that the sports equipment contractor manage under those conditions where they are being pressurized by the GC construction manager to
do everything they can do to possibly speed up the installation, even though that may not be in the best interest of the client. You know, if you can speak to that.
Your construction manager, set a schedule. And set a schedule early in the project before we started, and there's the dates that your product's supposed to hit the ground, and these are the X number of days that you have to install. And I will tell you, if they're squeezing you on that side, you've got to scream. You've got to tell them, we can't do it. We can't, the floor's got to act. It's got to be sitting there. It's going to take our crew X number of days to get it. The finish has to be put down, the sanding, whatever, and that's a schedule. Most of what I see is the construction managers that I work with, they come to you and say, unless you dictate your schedule. Now, they're going to plug it into their overall completion date, but if you come back in and say, I've got to have 23 days, and they come in and say, no, I'm only going to give you 15, well, obviously we've got a problem, and so you need to be sitting there talking to them. You need to be you'll come to an OAC meeting or two, alert the architect and say, hey, Craig, you specified this product, and they're giving us an unrealistic time frame. So
I agree, it's about teamwork and definitely getting at that meeting and making it known at the meeting. They can't hide that then. A lot of times the voice doesn't get heard, and so you coming to the meeting or the sub-meeting that the architect's at, that's important. And you saying that in front of them, at least our ears are gonna perk up and say, okay, there's a problem, and we are gonna follow up with that.
And I think what you're bringing up is the old famous, the building's not quite enclosed, we want you to bring the flooring anyways, we don't have permanent heat and ventilation. I think that's what where we're always at the stop saying, we don't have these, we're not starting. How do we bring that to the architect without, also kicking the GC in the butt?
Well, as I mentioned before, quality is first and foremost for us. We don't want to have any problems down the road. That's a huge pain for everyone involved. So we're going to react immediately. How do you go about that? Like I said, at a meeting and just mentioning it, we're crushed here on time. You're eating away at our schedule. I'm not going to be able to do, this is going to be a problem for us. We can't hit this requirement for the install.
most of our projects will have weekly or bi-monthly OAC meetings, but then we also have weekly subcontractor meetings, and I make several of those. I do most of the on-site work for our firm, and so I'm in those meetings, and you need to speak up. You need to let it be heard in that meeting, so it goes into the minutes. If it's not in the minutes, if I'm not at the meeting, I review the minutes when they're sent to me. So if you've got a concern on your time frame, you need to speak up and let me know.
I'd like to make a comment regarding approvals and substitution requests that we're running into today. At least I am. It appears that you spend time and put together a 15, 16-page substitution request based on the fact that I represent a certain manufacturer, and our product or our company is not listed as an approved manufacturer in the specification. Go to the effort of putting together a very comprehensive substitution request, emailing it to the construction manager and or the GC, or as directed by the architect to a specific architect within that firm. And you sit there and say you're 2.5 or 3 weeks ahead of bid date, because you usually do it when you first hear about the project or see it on Dodge or whatever your source is, and you immediately get it into the architect. It seems today that architects have gotten lazier than they've ever been before. They just do not respond. And you will follow addendum 1, addendum 2, addendum 3, and you determine how this architect operates, because most generally, there will not be any approvals listed, but there'll be page after page after page of correction of the drawings as far as the design of the building, but they pay no attention to a request that states in the specification or as approved by the architect or approved equal. And they don't respond. It's very frustrating these days. And I don't know about you folks here, but my attitude is, we bid the damn job, we'll fight the battle after the fact. Because it's gotten to that point where you just cannot get responses from these architects. And the other thing is, a lot of these architects now In the old days, they used to write their own spec. They had a specification writing department. They wrote their own spec, generated it, published it, and that was a spec that would be to be followed. Now they're going to these specification writing companies, or people who write specification. They're buying a package, they're inserting it into the documents, and that becomes the gospel for what that job is going to be. And you find it over and over again that these specifications are just redundant over because it's the same people, or those 3 manufacturers listed, and the architect, that's it. They're not accepting anybody's other product as an equal. And it's very frustrating these days.
We have a policy in our office that we do not pre-approve equals. And the reason is that if we do that, we'll never get the project out the door. Every manufacturer out there is coming back and telling us that, hey, my product's equal, my product's equal. You know the basis of our spec. You know whether your product's equal or not. But if you're waiting until the spec is written and the plans are on the street, you've missed the boat, because you should have been in my office educating my staff, the architects in my office, as to what the product is and showing us what your product is.
But that creates a problem for both the manufacturer and the dealer who bid the job. Should he bid the job, our dealer should bid the job, he's not listed as an approved, we are not listed as an approved manufacturer, and he bids with our product. He bids a job, and then he's low. Our contractor submits that product to your firm, and you don't approve it. Who sets up the difference for the contractor when he has to go to the next product, the next higher price from another approved supplier or dealer, installer? I mean, that's something that's kind of scary for a lot of people, and it's a concern.
Understand. The construction manager usually spends on our projects 2 to 3 weeks going back through the bid packages, verifying that everything would be considered an equal or not. And we'll make a decision at that, and that's prior to a GMP being into an honor.
You know what, I agree, everyone is lazy. I'm not kidding. I think as my career has evolved, I think everyone is. It's a shortcut, and I don't know how to change that. We don't have spec writers in our firm. We do have products that work and that we've had good experience with, like Craig had. But we do involve our owners in those decisions. And so a lot of times when we get a request for a substitution, we have to go back to them and they say, we're not going to consider it. That's not something that we want. And, we want to go with these 2 and that's it. A lot of times the salespeople for those manufacturers have already gotten to our owner way before we have. And they've decided. And so we just bid those 2, and we don't even have approved equal in the spec, like Craig said. So,
what's really frustrating, we have an architectural rep that travels the country representing our product, does AI presentation,
Sure.
goes in the architect. They go in, I know that there's some architects that call on 3 times with the installing dealer or the gentleman by himself, and he goes in, he sits down, they do the AI course, presents the whole product line, and I'll be damned, you know what? They don't put us in the spec, I mean, they like to come in and have a free lunch. You come in and buy them lunch, and they all sit there and eat, and he does his spiel. But they walk out the door, and they completely forgot as soon as they walk out the door.
I can't account for that.
No, I know you can't, but I say this is what's frustrating as far as the way that we operate, what we have to contend with, because this is the reality. This is what's happening.
Mm-hmm. No, I sympathize with that. We try to research every product, and I think that it's an excellent source for us when we have people come in for lunch and learns, and we can touch and feel and understand. We actually take field trips with our clients to installs that have already been done in the area too, and that helps a great deal. So hosting any of that might help as well. So
I think the one main thing that Carrie's pointing out, the owner has more power than, and that was one of the questions. Who has more power on the specification, you or the owner?
No, the owner, but they're going to listen, to us. If we have a real problem with something, they will hopefully listen to us. Most of the time they do. But the owner takes precedent.
Right.
Yeah, the owner comes in 9 times out of 10 and tells us we want such and such a floor. Not because they researched that floor, but the school district down the road, that's the floor they used and they love it. And they can't compete against that school, So, hey, we want to play on the same floor, whether it's the best floor out there or not. Now, at that point in time, I have to kind of sit there and try to educate them as to, here's the pros and cons of that floor, because 90% of our clients are small rural school districts with very limited budgets. And it's not unusual to run into 2 layers of plywood with some sort of a pad in between. So we try to convince them, we try to educate them in a way. There's better floors out there that, yes, they cost a little bit more money, but they're going to have better ball reaction, take better care of your students' knees, and things like that. You start talking to them in those lines, well, now all of a sudden they start saying, well, maybe the guys down the street didn't get the right floor. Unfortunately, with basketball courts, all you see is the maple. Nobody really, in the stands understands the science or anything underneath the maple. They see the maple, and they think, well, every basketball court's the same.
So that kind of leads us into another question for the architects. What are more important to you? Athleticism, performance, life cost study, or price?
So I would say that it's going to fall somewhere between price and performance. Most of the time with our clients, and I will defer to our clients, they can give us kind of a budgetary number of where they want to be, and I want to show them the products that are going to fall in line there. Our staff is going to show them the products that will be in that line, and then they're going to go try it out and go see what it feels like, and they'll make field trips to go over there and check them out. And so then after that, aesthetics is it's a little bit lower on the list, but I think it really falls between performance and cost.
So the one thing that most of my clients are not sitting there hammering about is life cycle cost on the floor. They don't think 20 years out, 50 to 25 years out, or whatever. They understand that there's the yearly maintenance and sanding and such. The cost is one of the things that we always battle, because almost every time the architect, we're not setting the cost. The construction manager's coming back in and saying, well, we budgeted this for that floor. And all of a sudden they're sitting there with an unrealistic budget and say, well, Craig, you've got to get a floor that meets that. Well, no, we've got to sit there and understand the budget. So you've got to go back to the client and explain that, hey, the initial budget review that was put together by the construction management company, they pulled something and they said, well, we're going to give you $13 a square foot for gym floor. And it's about as simple as they get, because they don't know the science behind it. And so we have to come back in and start trying to adjust numbers to get what we want. It's always a give and take. We win some battles, we lose some battles.
And I think that answer is going to change too if this is an elementary level versus a high school versus a college, a university. I think cost is going to be less in play, more performance-based at the university level than anything else.
How do we build relationships with the next generation of architects who may not be as adept at taking phone calls or meeting face-to-face the way I suspect?
Make sure your website's up to date.
Yeah.
Text
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
Text them.
Yeah, no, I definitely think you've got to have your information online.
Yeah.
What you want to put out there needs to be online and searchable.
Yeah.
Along with that, how do we teach the young architects about how important the MFMA is?
And what's their current perception of it?
Probably there is no perception of it until they need to work on that project, because they're just learning as they go. Our architecture is much like your industry. When you first started out, you need to learn on the job. And the more they specify, the more they understand, and the more they look up all the little acronyms that are in specifications, as we all know. Those are a lot of fun, and they have to understand them. Most of them don't understand them. They need to understand those. So that in itself is a teaching job and a mentorship within our office, and that's something that we struggle with on a regular basis, is to helping them understand and move along in their career and know what's important. But again, going back to those case studies and understanding that here's a problem. Why was this a problem? How can we alleviate that? What are some standards that we can get incorporated into the specifications that do that? Lunch and learns are great, because actually people who don't know a lot about gym flooring, wood flooring, come to those. They learn, they listen. That is really important, and they still need those credits.
Our firm size being 13, we're basically broken into two offices. My partner runs his projects, I run mine. So the 5 or 6 people that are working under me, it's a collaboration. We throw it on the table, we see what we like. Everybody from the draftsman that we just hired, if he's got an opinion, we want to hear it. But you've got to get to that. You've got to figure out how to identify the person that's the lead architect on the project and who on that team should be growing, and you've got to target them to get your product in front of them.
How important to you is that for an installer to be an MFMA and MIL accredited installer?
Yeah, I want every certification I possibly can get in there, a requirement, because we've seen some bad installations, and we want to avoid those types of contractors who don't have any record of any installs in the area.
You know, on something of this scope, if we've got a new installer, we're going to want to see their work. We're going to want to go see one of their installations. We're going to look at it and, you know, not afraid to come back to the owner and say, hey guys, this guy doesn't have it. Or, yeah, we looked at it, if you can nail board straight, the finished product looks right. But we want to sit there and make sure that we've got somebody that's been trained properly, because the biggest thing that we're concerned about is that there's nothing in the installation that avoids a warranty for our.
So if you have a specification where you require MIL certification, MFMA installer, and X client comes in, doesn't have either one of those, but is 15% less, does that change your viewpoint?
No, I get paid on a percentage basis.
It doesn't change my viewpoint, but I have an obligation to take it to the client.
So in our MFMA board meeting the other day, there was a discussion around if somebody is supplying, you know, first of all, do you guys always write into your spec, it must be MFMA?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens if somebody else, non-MFMA mill manufacturer, and it's already written in your spec, and they supply that, the non-MFMA mill supplies that to a project, and is there an awareness of what the MFMA brings to the table from a standpoint of being able to have inspections or grading or making sure it meets the MFMA specifications for tolerances and humidity versus somebody that's not an MFMA mill and it's supplied and there's a problem?
Let me tell you the good thing about architects is that once it's written down, we're going to follow it. It's very hard to vary from a specification, usually, with the types of individuals that are architects, because they're going to look, they're very detailed people, and they're going to look and say, okay, this is in our spec. If I'm getting a shop drawing on maple that's not from there, they're going to flag it, and they'll probably reject it. Without any, that's it.
And that's good to know, because we're starting to hear more of that happening that are from non-MFMA certified mills, and I think there's some risk at stake for the owners if that non-MFMA maple comes in and there's issues. There, I don't think there's as much protection that the MFMA provides for recourse going back and things of that nature.
I think today more than ever we care about where things are coming from.
Yeah, and if we found out that that was being handled, or if that was going on, should we report that to you?
Yes?
Absolutely. We go through a check.
Black eyes, everybody might just hit me in the eyes with their fist, but I think this is an issue out there.
We go through the checklist on our specs when we get the shop drawings in, and if it's not met, it's sent back, revised, and resubmitted. And if there's no gray area.
How does that non-MFMA mill put documents together to get it submitted to the architect, and what form do they use if they're independent, non-MFMA, but yet they have to do submittals for consideration? How do they process that?
Full bid?
No. I'm talking about formality. I'm talking about the formality of the approval. I mean, I think I know what he's talking about. But there is a mill that is basically come online have a basis of design that calls for an MFMA certified product, period. It's in the spec. And I understand that there have been jobs where this particular mill has furnished product delivered to the job site installed. And what I'm trying to figure out is, because I don't know the whole story, but somewhere along the way, that mill had, the representative of that mill has to do a submit to the architect. How can they in good conscience stamp that, approve, so he's allowed to put the product on the job site? I mean, I'm asking the guys here, does anybody know? I mean, the guys.
Basically, what we've seen in our area, they don't tell the architect, they don't tell the owner, it just shows up and nobody catches it.
With us, that's the responsibility.
They send MFMA bills and then they use something.
So these are directions to the owner, that you don't did, no? Doing it through the architect?
They're sneaking it on the job.
They're sneaking it on the job.
They sent me something else.
The danger is, if we buy the product, we buy the finished product. We don't have one person that sends the wood to it all comes from the same installer. And he's running the risk of you burn me once, you won't work for me again.
You know, it comes down to us as contractors to do our job and inform the architects, inform the general, this might be happening.
Well, we're just putting you on notice. Okay.
Way back there,
More than once we've come across this spec, it's certainly not from you guys, but it'll call for a certain level of performance from a gym floor system. Yet the basis of design does not meet that, and the install instructions are something totally different. And we sometimes have to pull out a little bit of a magic 8-ball as far as realizing what's the most important of the spec to look at. We look at and we obviously try and contact architects, getting it done out. But is it that basis of design that is kind of the trumping factor over the balance of the spec, or how do you guys see that in your writing?
This would be the basis of design for us.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
okay, here's a question. What are the 3 most important items in a maple floor specification that will determine the best quality installation for yourself?
Warranty is the first one that I'm going to say.
Well, it's going to be coming back to the warranty at the end of the job.
And again, I think where the material is coming from, are we just, the certification for both the installer, and then what are we buying exactly with it? Is that material, are we just buying the maple? Is it really, or is it the system? And where is that coming from?
And that falls more into play if you're doing some sort of lead certification project, which we help do that thing.
We do, and it's important for us.
Question is, how do I get architects to stop cutting and pasting?
If you know that answer, I would really like it.
Again, I said, we're creatures of habit. We've got a spec that's put together, but that doesn't mean that, not because you've got a project that you're trying to bid, but, drop by the office and say, hey, we would like to review your spec, because yes, we may be using a spec that was a great spec 15, 20 years ago, and just because nobody's pointed out to us that we got lazy and we don't go back and update it, we're rushing to get that spec book put together right there, same time we did the drawings, and hey, I've already got that spec section wrote, the same one I've always used, pull it over. If you don't alert me that, hey, my installer that got the last project doesn't come back and just say, hey, there's things in your spec that needs to be modified, changed, or whatever, we don't know.
When we use a basis of design, we're reviewing that with the salesperson that has come in and talked to us. Most oftentimes, we have the architects meeting with those salespeople to review that, to make sure that there's no conflicts. We're saying this is a basis of design, here's some other things that are in that specification. What else are we missing? What else should we be including if there's an equal opportunity?
Questions came up. Would it help that MFMA provided, they took it off.
I like that one. too.
So next one is, would it help if the MFMA provided a service to review a gym floor spec?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Mills will love you for that.
Steve,
Yeah.
I've been raising my hand.
Yeah, you don't matter.
Question, just getting back to scheduling and buildings that, you know, the GC or the CM wants floors in that don't have doors and windows. You know, we're running into a lot of situations where we're up against getting permanent conditions in a space to do our installation because of commissioning issues and warranty issues with new HVAC systems. Who's driving that? I mean, is that an architectural level issue in terms of, okay, we want you to install a floor, but we're not going to commission the new HVAC system until after the floor is installed because we don't want to start the warranty on said system. We see that, I don't know,
See it all the time.
Yeah, we see it a lot, and it's kind of this thing that's crept into, you know, into our world, much like moisture barriers and that, but I don't think we have enough time to talk about that. But
You're saying
who's driving?
substantial completion is all wrapped up with all trades as opposed to just the HVAC?
Well, it's not that. It's the GC or the CM says, we want you to install a floor, and there's no permanent heat, cooling, humidity, whatever, because they haven't commissioned the HVAC system because they don't want to start the clock ticking on the warranty.
Isn't it running free? Isn't it running just uncontrolled?
Well, I mean, it varies, but a lot of times, especially with new construction and new buildings, they don't want to fire that stuff up until after, you know, we're done. And then we're going into spaces, hopefully that have windows and doors, you know, to put in a floor that don't have kind of that conditioned space that the floor is going to live in. Is that coming from the architectural level, or is it the HVAC, you know, manufacturer saying, well, you know, don't commission it until, because think about it, if you're commissioning the HVAC system May 1st, and they're not taking occupancy till September 1st, it's 3 less months that they have on their warranty cycle. I think that's the bottom line.
You're getting into an area of means and methods which the architect doesn't have control over. So
it's
that's
not the
back.
architect.
It's not the architect. That's going back on the construction manager. But you know, we're going to get systems in place. They're going to be up and running long before we even consider commission.
Okay.
So that warranty period starts. Now we always fight. When did that warranty period start? Especially it's like holding retainage. You know, we sit there in Arkansas have a law with schools, you can only hold 5% retainage. But I'm holding 5% retainage on the dirt contractor for 15 months.
Is that more so with the GC or with the CM?
Well, I mean, that's a different, you know, statement altogether. I think a lot of the questions that come up here are very different answers, whether you're working under a GC delivery method or a CM delivery method. And I think everybody in the country, you know, I mean, there's certain areas of the country that are hardcore GC and certain areas, I mean, Chicago is mostly CM. You and I have had that discussion a lot. So, you know, I don't know that it really matters from a delivery method. I think it's that, you know, from the mechanical contractor's perspective, they've kind of gotten that creeped into where it affects us. So.
Structural drawing and architectural drawing is not coordinating. Whose fault is that?
Structural drawings for the wood floor.
Slab. Recess, you know, 5-inch recess with a 2-inch system, we show up and it's our fault.
I can't.
How does that happen? Does the structural drawings, are they made drawn by you?
Someone's not doing their job. They didn't look at it. No, there's someone who's an experience of doing this set of drawings.
Yeah, there's so many different levels that something like that has just gotten missed. It shouldn't be missed. One, the architect on their architectural plan should somewhere indicate what the recess is. The structural drawing should show the slab compression. The installer, you know, hey, this is what the spec says. So by the time time, I mean, if you show up on the job and that recess is way off, you can't be held responsible for that.
Yeah, how many times did that
Can I
happen?
get your name and number?
Here's a question. Do you care if a system, if you like it, that's proprietary? There's no other equals to it.
Proprietary.
By territory.
Proprietary.
Yeah, sorry. I'm from Wisconsin. A lot of football in Oklahoma.
I like cheese curds. So if the card's taking a phone call.
Blow me up. Had to ring all week with that.
So if can you repeat the question, a proprietary system?
So do you care that if the system is proprietary? Do you care that it is? Will you still specify it as the only source?
Oh, if it's the only source that the owner wants that? No, I would strongly suggest that they have at least 2 systems that they're going to bid, just to, but I have had clients who only want one system, and that is it. So yeah, I mean, we've done it, but we try to suggest that that's not in their best interest to do that, and at least, entertain another one.
It works both ways. If the school superintendent comes in and says, this is what we're gonna have, I'm not gonna fight that fight. If that's what you want, I'm gonna make sure that you get what you want. That's my job. When it shows up on the job and it's not what he thought it was, I can fall back and say, okay, now let's do this.
Hey, Steve, I've got a question. Craig, you mentioned earlier that if somebody bid something that wasn't in the specs, and it was considerably lower, it's your obligation to the owner. Can you dive more into what your obligation is? Because what that's telling me is, why do I even want to get my product spec? And all I'm going to do is want to come in with a lower number. And I know that's not the right thing.
We try very hard to hold the spec. I think it's something we work with, but we hold the spec. Now, we've had products that have come in that the rep says, hey, it's an equal. And it's like, okay, I don't know that product, I need a physical sample of it. And I'll physically put the sample that I specified and the sample that they're putting side by side. Make a determination. If it's, there's been times when I've taken both products to the owner and said, look, I'll let you make the call. But we do our best to hold the spec.
Thank you.
Now, I've had instances where I have determined a product was not an equal, and rejected it, and the installer, the salesperson, never made a phone call to try to fight for their product. So that tells me right along, well, okay, then you knew it wasn't an equal. You were just hoping I didn't catch it.
Okay, this question was asked, I see this in the specs quite a bit, is on new projects, sometimes the concrete slab corrections, the grinding, the filling is in our bid specification. How do you deal with that? But you're asking us to fix somebody else's screw.
Oh.
I know you wouldn't do this, Carrie.
See, yeah, architects have a hard time partitioning things between different contractors. And we just want the perfect scenario, and we want the belt and suspender. So it is really up to if we're working with a construction manager to get that aligned with the right trade, and it might cross over different specifications. So that should have been picked up in the scope, and but I'm guessing it's not. A lot of times, since this is a question that is here today, we realize that there's spec sections that coordinate with each other, and we reference them in the wood flooring spec. So I realize that it's probably something that is, from one point perspective, a problem, and I guess that is up to the delivery method of the project a little bit, and the construction managers are supposed to be partitioning that.
It's tough. You're coming behind the person that put the concrete down 12 months earlier. And so now it's had, who knows how many vehicles, all this stuff dropped on it, gouges, bumped in. I think all of you expect to do some level of floor prep. But I think you've got to go in and make that known up front.
Right.
We don't expect the bleacher company to do our solid block. I mean, that's what the question is. You're asking us to fix somebody else's.
Yeah, and we're not asking you to be, concrete people, but that's, again, I think that's a.
That's what exclusions are for.
Sure.
Qualify a bit.
Any other questions, though? Getting short. How do you talk to architect about designs and graphics when they want to put a 50-foot stained logo on a grade school? And they expect you to warranty it.
Well, let's start with a meeting. If we've got a lot going on and an owner wants, and it's usually the owner who wants a 50-foot logo, it's not us. I don't really think. But we start with a drawing and talk about the hierarchy of that drawing and what that's going to look like, and then sit down with the installer and then or manufacturer and say, okay, what's this? How's this really going to look at the end of the day? And really, it's about teamwork and understanding. I think we all want it to look good and be proud of something, and if it's going to look like a mess because there's so much on it that you don't want that, you can't, it's confusing. We want it to be clear what line's what.
I would say 90% of the time, the graphics that we start with on the drawings are not the graphics we wind up with. We get into it, and the owner's like, oh, why didn't we change our school logo? Or, well, now I went to so-and-so's gym, and they've got a small one over here and a small one over, we want to do that. We had one that there's a pirate ship inline. Looks really cool. If you up on the top bleachers, you get down on the floor, and it just looks like multicolored floor. But, so, some of the stuff that y'all are able to do with graphics, we don't really, I don't know, we comprehend yet. So, we rely on y'all to come back to us and put in the drawings, okay, we've got a basic level, and then sit down with the owners, okay, here's, if you want to move other sides, and put together drawings for them to see. But really, when it comes to the graphics, other than the court markings, we step away from them.
So, what magazines, websites, conferences do you go to that would be good for our association and us to see you at or advertise it? That you get your information from?
Each state has a component of the American Institute of Architects. Each state has a convention. That's a real good opportunity for you to set up a booth and show your product. In October, I was the chair of the Arkansas convention. 4-day convention. We had 400 architects in a room. We had 100 trade show booths. So that's a real good opportunity for you to get your name out. The thing I will tell you is that you can't be a one and done type atmosphere. I do 4 school shows a year, and I go to all of them every year. You can't sit there and run in one year and say, okay, we're going to put a marketing budget together, we're going to sit there and spend the money to do a booth and not show back up. You've got to follow up, you've got to keep doing it, because it may take 2 or 3 years before we catch the eyeball, before we sit there and say, hey, yeah, they're around now, out of business next week.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think website's the most important information you possibly have. And you have to make sure that your online presence is huge. Because if we can search it, but if it doesn't pop up, it doesn't do you any good. And that's okay. So you need to have the crawlers out that will get that. And that's important. And any website designer can help you with that. But that is probably the single most important issue out there, because as you already mentioned, the younger staff that we have they don't want to go places either. They really want to sit in front of the computer and find all the answers that they need to. And your website is going to be, and making sure that it's searchable is really important.
Okay, we're going to take one last question. Anybody got anything out there before we leave?
Submittal drawings, game lines, we get constant pushback from architects and construction managers saying, we want you to provide game line layouts. We don't interact with the client curious why architects would do that. They don't give us, they'll just give us a blank, a basketball court, and like they said, they want 12 diamond courts. They want us to lay out the sleeve locations, the bleacher locations, the backboard locations.
We're pretty accessible. We're on site on a regular basis during construction and at meetings. And you can get our ear pretty easily by attending one of those meetings. And if you sit down with us afterwards and say, listen, if you move me to understand the hierarchy of these lines for you before I start doing a drawing and wasting my time, it would be helpful. So, I mean, we just need to know, just open that communication door. Usually, our architects are reaching out to ask for, like Craig said, there's most likely changes that are happening throughout the course of construction anyway. So we're most likely sending some notes with some changes, and we might suggest a meeting.
I guess we do still have some more time, sorry everybody. Question is, specs typically call for 7 to 10 days acclimation for wood. A lot of that depends on directly to the time of the year and humidity in the area. What are your thoughts? How do we convince an architect? Some of that is, flooring used to come by railroad cars, they now come by trucks.
We do not take and list the number of days for acclimation. That's strictly the installers. I mean, we understand that it could be a 2-week period or more, and we make that known, but it's up to you as the installer to sit there and say, hey, we can't put that floor down because it's wet, and just mull up on us and say, can't do it.
Okay, here's one that'll open up the field. How to convince architects to spec anchored resilient over floating floors.
Are you saying that anchor resilient is better than floating?
Yes.
Depends on the contractor.
Again, you've got to come to our office, or you've got to find us, you've got to educate us. We don't do it for a living. We don't put the floor down. We draw boxes. We draw squares and circles. And, think we know what we're doing, but we don't know your product. We don't know the best way to put it down. So you've got to sit there and come to us and educate us. You can't come to us the day the project bids and try to educate us, but you got to hit us. I tell Carrie, I'm sure you say, we're in the education public school realm. We're marketing today for what we're going to do 3 years from now. And you've got to be the same. You've got to be the same proactive person. You've got to come to my office saying, hey, there's a new product, or hey, look at this. Your spec's got something. Last year when we did that project, your spec had some tweaking we need to do, but you've got to take the time to educate us.
I agree.
Because if you don't, your competitor will.
And I think it's easy to do. You don't have to always show up either. You can call and find the right person to talk to in our firm. There is one individual who orchestrates all of the lesson learns, all of the information that's disseminated to our staff. He's actually in charge of our architectural staff and the business of architecture for us. So if you can find that one person, it might be different in a smaller firm, but in our firm, that is that one person that's going to get that information out to the architects. So if you can find him or her, and then it's pretty easy from there to get the information that you need out to that specific firm.
Always realize that secretary on the front desk is the gatekeeper.
Yep.
And,
But they're happy to give out names. They're happy to give out names.
Yes, but if you come in and you're polite to them and you call them, they'll, in my firm at least, they'll direct you to the right person.
When submittals are turned in, do you actually see the submittals, or is that go through the construction manager, contractor?
Well, first of all, through the construction manager or contractor, I don't know if they're ever looked at, but then we do get them and we look at them, yes. So technically, they're supposed to go through the CM first.
The CM is supposed to review them and approve them prior to sending bills.
Do you like information, do you like the information sent to you on flash drives?
For information on a technical or new product, basically?
I think that's what they're saying, new products or submittals.
I would just prefer a link to a website. Those things get lost.
Got a stack of them. Most of them have them.
questions. Anybody else have any questions out there?
You mentioned like vapor barriers earlier. Do either of you have a standard position on like concrete additives or any kind of just preemptively planning for a vapor barrier to a
The vapor barriers in our spec, now we're real picky on additives outside of the wood floor, because we get some additives out there that glues are not glue anymore. And all of a sudden our BCT or LBT or something, just, there's an additive that's been there that's prohibiting the glue to adhere. And we run into that problem quite often. So we've got specific additives that are just not.
Yep.
What keeps you up at night? What do you worry about?
Lawsuits now.
Are you moving to Nevada?
Thinking like Delaware. No, I really do, what keeps me up at night is, are things going wrong? If something goes wrong after an install and we had an opportunity to prevent it, and it was something that wasn't covered in our specification, did we do the best that we could to put the information in there that could hold the installer accountable or the contractor accountable for putting the right material in and installing it the correct way? And was it done? And was it done the right way? Because lots of times we can do the right thing on paper and it's not installed the right way. And that's a big nightmare. And that's most of the time, honestly, when lawsuits do happen, it wasn't done exactly what it was said to, there's not control, there's just so many things that just weren't executed the way they were drawn.
Yeah, I think that I've gotten to the point in our firm where I don't see the construction documents until they're out in the field. And so I turn a corner, why did we do that? I've got my staff there that are real good about it, especially when it comes to finishes. I'll walk into a rig and say, where did that color come from, or where did, so I can't specify just one thing. Everything keeps me up at night. Superintendent's calling me. It's all about, you try real hard to meet their expectations, but you don't always have a client that's engaged. And next thing you know, he's calling you saying, day before yesterday, why are we putting BCT down in my high school? I've decided I don't want any BCT, I want polished concrete. Well, Mr. Superintendent, half the building is prepped for VCT, the VCT's on site. And now you want to stop into a polished concrete. And, we had these conversations a year ago when we talked about the pros and cons of polished concrete. And so it's like all of a sudden you stop at everything when we get somebody to come in and tell us how much it's going to cost to polish.
That's good too, that was good.
How can we as contractors and manufacturers help you in architectural?
With us, it's real simple. Tell us what you're going to do and do it. I'm not going to micromanage you. You know your product, you know your system, you know how it goes down. You know the installers, especially on a K-12 campus. I tell people, we started off, people on your crews that I don't need to send them to an elementary school. We set the rules up front, but it's show up when you say you're going to show up, or call me and tell me why. Don't let me run out there and say, floor was supposed to be, started installing yesterday, and I show up there and there's nothing going on. Keep me, keep the construction manager informed, and hopefully he's keeping me informed. But it's real simple. Show up and do what you say you're going to do.
And if you see a problem, tell us about it.
Sure.
Because we want to know. This is a team. We're trying to, we want it to be done right. Even if it's not your trade and it's related to you. That's something that's very important. I think that's something that's been lost over the last few years. Over the last couple of decades, really, is that we used to get, hey, look at this. Did you see this? I would walk out on the site and contractors would show me something. And it wasn't even the work that they were doing, or that it really even rarely involved them, but they just cared about what the end product was going to be, and somehow we've lost that. And I'm not saying just on the installer's end, but really, the overall teamwork picture of this listen, and it is, it's a huge effort for a team to construct a new building or renovate a building. It's important.
90% of all issues can be corrected, overcome with good communication. And that's good communication between you, me, and the owner. And, if I can go to the owner and say, hey, look, this is what happened, here's what's going on, the owner's got to, in my mind, I tell my staff, the owner's got to hear from us. The owner doesn't need to be walking down the job site and all of a sudden some, subcontractor's laborer says, oh yeah, this is all messed up. Well, if you know that, you got to go straight to the owner and own it. And that's whether your guys make a mistake, my guys make a mistake, but if we keep the communication open, 90% of the time they get fixed.
You mentioned the importance of keeping a website up to date. Are you getting most of your research from the installer and the contractor's website or from the manufacturer's website?
Manufacturer.
Any other questions? Well, I'd like to thank both Carrie and Craig for coming, putting you through the storm we did. Now
No
you're
one threw
going through
anything.
some weather.
No one threw anything, Steve. You said that they were going to throw.
I told Steve Hayes he couldn't ask this question he wanted to ask, so.
Thank you all for the work that you